When Jacob woke up, he realized that today he had overslept. Not for work or some other duty, but from his own shattered delusion of family happiness. Despite the stress of everyday life, household chores, children, and the constant demands of his wife, Ela and Arya, the two sisters, had always been close. But Ela, although deeply attached to her sister, did not always approve of Arya's carefree approach to life. While her own children were growing up, becoming strong and independent, Arya hadn't really changed from the carefree woman she had been in her youth. "If this isn't a holiday, let's make it one now," she'd often say. It wasn't like she was ever indulging in alcohol, but Arya's restless spirit often craved fun and relaxation, even if it meant letting go of responsibility for a while. Jacob, on the other hand, wasn't much of a fan of rowdy celebrations. He'd often sneak off to bed early, leaving Arya to entertain the guests on her own. That evening was no exception. By 9 p.m., Jacob quietly excused himself and headed to bed. A few other guests followed suit, gathering their things and heading out. Ela, meanwhile, called to her children and gave a quick nod to her husband. "We'll go now," she said. "And honestly, it's a pleasure to know, but I'll stay a little longer. Tomorrow's a day off," she added. Weir, ever the pragmatic one, asked her not to stay out too long. Ela, a bit reluctant, agreed, ushered the kids inside, and went to bed herself. But in the quiet of the night, something stirred her. After a while, she awoke and glanced at the clock. It was 2:30 a.m., and still no sign of Weir. Determined to get to the bottom of things, Ela slipped into her clothes and walked down the street to her sister's house. The door was unlocked, so she let herself in and made her way to the kitchen. The cluttered table was a clear sign that the party had just wrapped up, but there was no one left to enjoy the aftermath. A glance toward the living room revealed Jacob fast asleep, snoring softly on the couch. "This won't do," she thought. Not wanting to disturb him further, she decided to head to the bedroom to ask Arya where Weir had gone. But as soon as she opened the door, the truth hit her like a freight train. There they were, Arya and her husband Weir, both lying in the same bed, wrapped in each other's arms, their clothes scattered across the floor. It was more than Ela could handle. With her heart pounding, she stormed out of the room, throwing curses at her sister and her husband alike. Just then, Jacob stirred, lifting his head from the couch and grumbling, "Why are you shouting at this hour?" "Why not shout?" Leah snapped. "While you were enjoying your peaceful sleep here, your wife was busy making a mockery of our lives." The commotion roused the lovers from their slumber, but they barely had time to scramble for their clothes before Leah's husband, the head of the household, stormed into the room. He took in the scene, slapped the couple across the face in a fiery rage, and dragged Weir out into the cold night, letting him stumble down the porch completely naked. The fallout was catastrophic for both families. Ela, despite everything, decided to try and forgive her wayward husband. Jacob, however, couldn't bring himself to forgive his unfaithful wife. He filed for divorce. Though deeply attached to the children and the home he had built with his own hands, Jacob packed his bags and left. Arya, in a desperate attempt to salvage her marriage, pleaded with him, crying, begging, even throwing herself at his feet. But nothing worked. Jacob couldn't look past the betrayal. From that moment on, Arya and Leah's relationship was forever shattered. Arya blamed her sister for destroying her family, insisting that what had happened wasn't a big deal. "So what? It didn't hurt him," she scolded Leah. "You didn't have to go and tell him. Now look at me, I'm alone with 2 kids, and no one cares. Where's my new happiness supposed to come from?" Some people just can't help themselves, Ela thought, deciding there was no point in talking to her sister anymore. She warned Weir, "If I ever find out something like this again, you'll be out of here just like Jacob." Weir, understanding the gravity of the situation, took extra care to avoid any temptation. He even took a longer route to avoid passing Arya's house, knowing that if another mistake happened, there would be no forgiveness. And so, that's the story of our heroes. Do you think Jacob did the right thing by leaving his wife and his home? What would you do in his shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. We've got many more amazing stories coming your way. Wishing you a fantastic mood and all the best. Thank you. Valerie and Daniel first crossed paths at his workplace. Back then, Dan was still a student, juggling classes with a part-time gig fixing computers. Valerie came in one day, flustered and on the verge of tears. Her laptop had crashed right in the middle of her term paper, and panic had taken over. Feeling for her, Dan did something unexpected. He lent her his own laptop, no questions asked. That small act of kindness made an impression. Grateful and a little curious, Valerie agreed to go on a date with him. Fast forward 7 years. Married and living together, their once easy connection had begun to fray. Lately, Valerie seemed more irritable, more critical, picking Daniel apart over the smallest things. What used to be the closeness of married life started to feel more like a burden than a bond. It was disheartening, sure, but both held on to the hope that this was just a rough patch, something temporary. One evening, after a night out with her friends and a couple of glasses of wine, Valerie came home a little tipsy. She leaned into Dan with a mischievous glint in her eyes and suggested they spice things up in the bedroom. Intrigued, he asked what she had in mind. At first, she danced around the topic, clearly hesitant to lay it all out. But eventually, she came clean. She wanted to try bringing someone else into their bed. Not only that, she confessed to already signing up on a site meant for people with exactly that kind of interest. Daniel's reaction was immediate and intense. The idea revolted him. To him, a third wheel wasn't just awkward, it was a violation of everything sacred between husband and wife. Even if it was agreed upon, it still felt like cheating. He couldn't wrap his head around how someone who loved him could even think of such a thing. His frustration boiled over. He didn't speak to Valerie the entire next day. That evening, she tried to make amends. "I didn't realize it had hit you so hard," she said softly. "I overreacted." "I'm sorry too," Dan replied. Though in his heart, he didn't really feel at fault. His reaction felt justified. Still, a seed had been planted. He couldn't shake the suspicion, the gnawing need to know what she was capable of. Would she actually go through with it? Was she willing to cross that line if given the chance? For weeks, the idea took root, growing into something more. A plan. Dangerous, maybe even cruel. But the need to know overwhelmed the fear of what it might uncover. Eventually, Dan decided to act. Better to do and regret than never know and live with doubt. He told Valerie he was going on a business trip. In truth, no such trip existed.